Hi, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us during our little technical difficulties. I would like to say, um, yeah, I'm very happy to have our speaker today do a special presentation for us on the benefits and how to get children and youth involved in outdoors and nature. She has been very active in the native plant community and general outreach to youth. It is a pleasure to have her join us today. But before I get to that, I just wanted to bring up, we do have some activities coming up this coming month in April. We have a regular meeting on the 6th at 7 p.m. You can find us, all that information on Facebook or on our website. The website is usually the most up to date. So always check us out at citrusnps dot com. I think I'm having a blank right now. But also on April 14th, we have a field trip. We'll be doing a plant walk at 2 Mile Prairie, which is close to the Dunellen, right near the Withlacoochee River. So it's kind of that Marion, Citrus County, county line area. That'll be in the morning, and it's about 2.5 miles, but we go very slow. So it's also kid friendly if you would like to bring your kids and see what that's all about. We have a plant swap coming up on the 18th at 1 p.m. and that'll be in the Pine Ridge Community Center. So if you have native plants that you would like to bring, or if you want to see what's available, we'll be doing plants or cuttings potentially. If you can take cuttings and keep them in water, seeds, and if you have a plant that you don't know what it is and you're trying to find out if it's native, we'll have some people there that should be able to help you out. So bring like a little snippet or some good photographs and we'll try to help you out. And then on Earth Day, we're participating with our business member, Anson Nursery, who's in Homosassa on Homosassa Trail. They'll be having an Earth Day event and we will be participating with that. We'll do a couple of lectures during the day and they're going to be having refreshments, and they've got a native section as well as their contemporary landscaping section. So that should be a big fun day to go find something that you want to plant in your yard, maybe learn more about native plants. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our speaker for the day, Neta Villalobos-Bell.
Hi there. That was you got my last name perfectly.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's Neta. I keep forgetting.
No, I know. That's what it looks like. So anyway, yes, I would like to thank Athena for inviting me here today to talk about exploring nature with children. And I am with the Native Plant Society also. In a couple different chapters, I moved from Cuplet, Fern over to Lake County recently in Lake Beautyberry chapter. So we're sisters now.
Yeah.
And for some of you who aren't Native Plant Society people, I'll tell you just a little bit about us. We're a statewide organization with, Athena, you can correct me, the last I read it was about 33 chapters throughout the state. And their mission is to conserve, preserve, and restore Florida native plants and their native habitats. You can imagine you can't save the plant if there's no place for them to grow. So by conserving and restoring through different activities that the state and the local chapters are involved in, is there's a committee of many different agencies and organizations that review each of the natural properties in the state, and the Organization for the Native Plant Society is part of that to help land managers manage those properties. We also do restoration projects, and I believe there was one the Warea plant, and please correct me, Athena, anytime. And then also we rescue plants by going into places that are in imminent development projects, and of course we get permission to do that. We remove the plants and put them elsewhere where they will survive. And we have, as you know, Athena mentioned, monthly programs and field trips. And you can come along and learn more about native plants that way. Also about the interconnection with native plants and our wildlife are very important to sustaining our natural resources.
One of the most recent projects along those lines, the Citrus chapter was involved in, Marion Big Scrub chapter, that's in Marion County. They've been doing monitoring for the rare dicerandras, and that's in the Greenway. And FNPS organized a restoration planting out there, so we participated in doing that. And then the most recent thing that we've done is Lake Beautyberry chapter has been facilitating an invasive plant removal along the Good Neighbor bike trail, and so we have been participating in that as well. And that's an ongoing project that will keep going for months. Months.
With invasive plants, yeah, you can count on that. Okay. So to get started, first of all, to come up with my agenda, I always try to approach it in maybe three different topics. And I did make some assumptions, not knowing who all of you are. But the first assumption, if you're here, I'm assuming that you love nature. You're a nature lover. And you want to share that with our next generation so that they can have those same passions and feelings that you do. Also, I'm assuming that some of you maybe already are experienced with this. You're already taking children out, maybe as a grandparent or a parent or a friend, an aunt, uncle. And maybe you just want a few more little tips to keep you going. And then maybe some of you are just starting and wanting to participate with your children out there. So hopefully we can give you some tips to get those started. So before you go outside, sometimes, and I think even more nowadays, we have to overcome challenges to even get them outside the house. If you're my generation, which we won't talk about, if you're my generation, I don't even remember my mom telling me to go out inside and play. I just did. And it was primarily unstructured. And I thought I was Tarzan. So I would climb trees. And then that's I think third grade. And when I was in fifth grade, I got my little sister and me to climb another tree when we moved to Arizona. And we had a club up there. I have no idea why we had a club and why I took notes. But that's where we held our club meetings, was up in this tree. We hid behind bushes and pretended it was a house, and we'd go off to work from there. It was what I think what was a lifelong learning for me. I had a pause, and I never really participated, but then that love came back. So this may be something too for you. And I think always a little bit of pre-planning helps for enjoyment, so that you're not caught unawares or surprised by something, maybe a rainstorm perhaps in the summer. And then last, I'll give you some tips and suggestions for when you are outdoors and exploring. So, overcoming challenges to get them outdoors. Of course, parents didn't have to think about this. As I mentioned before, we just went out and played. But kids are different nowadays. They've got a lot more distractions. And what I'm going to talk about now is temperament and their personality, and also yours and how they mesh when you approach kids, getting them outdoors. And the new normal, yep, it's going to be about COVID. And screen time, which we're all familiar with. So, temperament, what is that? If you go online, there's a whole bunch of different definitions, explanation, different phases, and how many natural natures people have. But I've narrowed it down to this one because I think it sums it all up. It's basically uh, what is naturally and normally for a person, how we respond to our world. And these four basic items here are our energy level. I'm going to go into why this is important, so hang in there. The energy level is like, are you an extrovert or introvert? Is your child an introvert and you're an introvert? That might be not so challenging for you to communicate. But if you're on different wavelengths here, it could be a little different. You're probably familiar with what gives an extrovert energy. It's being around other people and party and noise and action and movement, whereas the introvert is more conservative in their outgoing. They're just as happy to go to a party, but instead of jumping in and on the dance floor, they just might kind of hold back a little bit and make some observations. You know, thinking about looking at the different people, maybe making some thoughts about who these people are and what they're doing. The other thing is how we process information. Do you take it literally when you see something, or do you see possibilities in it, in what that information gives? Do you sort of spring off and come up with your own creative ideas instead of following along? And when we deal with life events, some people are more structured. They need rules, they need guidelines in order to feel safe, in order to feel comfortable. Whereas someone else who's more flexible won't be stymied when the unexpected situation comes up. They're able to skirt around it, jump over it, maybe just deal with it in a different way. And emotions is about decision making. Do we ponder and think before we make a decision? Or do we just impulsively make a decision, decide that's what we're going to do, let's go, let's just jump off the cliff there? Or maybe we ought to think about the consequences here. So these are different ways a person naturally, they're inborn. They're not learned, they're inborn in people. There's been a lot of research on that. So in order to get around that, you're not going to change the child. You're not going to change you either. But you can adjust so that you'll have a positive engagement, a positive relationship with that person, so that you're not butting heads. Let's go outside and go do something. Oh, I don't want to. So by understanding the child and where they're coming from can help you adjust how you approach them. And then once that happens, once you can understand their feelings, you can do this by listening to them very carefully. Listen what they're telling you versus what they're doing. And once you know that, if they say, you want to also be aware of their emotions. If they have strong emotions like, I don't want to go outside, I'm afraid. Well, why are you afraid? You can question them, ask them about that. Come up with solutions, ask them to come up with solutions. Well, how can we work this out? How can this not be a problem? You know, so that you're not afraid when we go outside. Ask them to help you. And then once you're communicating, you're going to have more success. You're going to be able to get them outside. And of course, once you've done that, both of you are going to enjoy the experience more. Here we are. We're in COVID, the new norm, apathy, just want to lie around. It's comfortable. I don't want to go outside. Well, I have to tell you, I think maybe this has attacked me a little bit too. I'm a gardener and I love to go outside. And once I get outside, I could go for hours and hours picking teeny tiny little weeds. And my mind will wander. You can tell I'm an introvert and more detail oriented. And but there has been family therapists who are bringing this subject up more and more to them in their practice. And it's that the children are just maybe afraid, or maybe they're just gotten comfortable and safe, and they just don't want to go out. And I think the only way to do this is to do your activities with them on a regular basis. And I'll be talking more about that too. Screen time. Of course, the numbers are up on this too, aren't they? And why not? Look at the boys down there. They are having fun. They're just so excited. They have so much more fun than just walking down a trail and looking at some trees and logs and some stupid little flower. This is exciting for them. And the introvert girl, she's just quietly, maybe perhaps reading a book there. They don't want to go out. Again, we'll touch a little bit on intention, being intentional. I think that is the best way to approach this. Pre-planning. The three aspects here, we're going to talk about when, where you're going to go, and what you should think about taking. When I offer all these suggestions, I understand that kids, your children are in different age ranges, and what you can do with a younger child may not work, for the 11 or 12-year-old. But it's for you to kind of maybe absorb some of these ideas and play with them and try them out, tweak them, and see what works for you. By being intentional, if we just say, hey, let's go out tomorrow, or gee, that was fun, we had a nice walk today, let's do it again. It probably won't happen. Like most things, you have to be intentional to make them work. You have to schedule them. A lot of people don't like schedules, they like being surprised. But this will work more if you can, with children, if you can do it scheduling. Now, I'm not saying to do it daily, weekly, monthly, but whatever works for you, but do it regularly. And if they have a calendar, that might be helpful for younger children. One of the things, they have these little stickers that you can buy. And if a child perhaps is interested in animals, they could put a little sticker on the date, like every other Thursday, I'm going to go out with grandma. We're going to go into nature. We're going to go outdoors. So they have something to look forward to. They can look at the calendar. And also, if you set a time of day, they can look forward to that too. Now, again, depending on what their temperament, their part of their personality is, they may like surprises. And so you go, well, we're going out next week. We'll just have to find out where it is. Or how about if the child likes to be prepared? You can say, oh, well, next week we're going to be doing this. I'm so excited. I can hardly wait till we do that. Now you be sure and be ready. I'm going to come at 10 o'clock. Oops, I'm looking at the clock down there. We better make it 10:30. Oh, I'm going to be there 10:30, and he'll be ready. So where are you going to go? Well, you can go just about anywhere, and especially with younger children, you might just want to start at home. That's the best place, in your yard, backyard, front yard. You can install gardens back there. Could even be a vegetable garden or a pollinator garden. You can put up bird nest boxes and look for birds. You can also, I just went blank. So from there, if you want, you can also start exploring in the neighborhood. This little boy is stuck on something down on the sidewalk there. or maybe is in the driveway. But you can expand from your yard to the neighborhood, from one neighborhood to the next neighborhood. You can even do that with older children. What I've done is when my niece and nephew would come over, I would say, "We're going on an adventure." And they'd look at me. So I gave one a butterfly net and another one a little bug uh, capture cup. And I took some guides. And in my neighborhood at that time, there was a retention pond. And so we would walk there, and one of our neighbors asked, "Where are you going?" You can imagine these little kids. They were in front of me, holding the net and all that. And she goes, "Where are you going?" I go, "We're going on an adventure." And so we would go down and walk around the pond. I don't think we, I don't think we ever really caught anything or did anything. We just walked around and talked about stuff, what we saw, and then we went back home. So there's all different places you can go. And of course, you've got county parks, state parks, um, um, national parks, but they may be too far. Even going out in the backyard, you can look out the window. A friend of mine, who's the mother of my little niece and nephew, when they were young, she had the boy with his window out from his bedroom look upon an area that he created a pineapple garden, which is pretty easy to do, right? Just cut off the top of the pineapple. And that was his garden, and he could see it from his bedroom window. Also, for her daughter, she built a little fairy garden, and she put little plants in there, little ground covers and things like that. And that was out of her bedroom window. And they would go out and they would tend their gardens. So even something as simple as that can help them get out. This was taken from an online site, Nature Kids Institute. And again, I'm not really necessarily promoting that you do each of these steps. You have to recognize, of course, the age of the child, and just kind of move out from there. But this gives you some semblance of perhaps how often these things can be done, depending on what your access is to the child. Maybe grandma babysits every day, a couple days a week, that kind of thing. So that will change what your schedule is. Here's some places to go. There's St. John's Water Management District. I know it's not yours, but it's your neighbor. They have trail guides. Southwest Florida Water Management District has trail guides, recreation guides. The Florida State Park, you can check them out for trails. And then, of course, your own county will have a list of parks that you can go to. Here's some books, too. I have the first two. I don't have the other one because it's specific to Citrus County. And I'm not familiar with it. I don't know how good it is. But what you can do is just go to bookstores and look through their nature section or their Florida section and see what's available to give you some additional ideas. You don't even have to buy the book, just write down a couple of the areas that you want to go to. What? So we've already been when and where, but what? Well, make sure your child is rested, okay? So if you're going to plan something at 6:30 or 7:30 in the morning, but they really haven't gotten enough sleep, they're not going to be happy trail walkers. Even teenagers may not get enough rest that they need. And so maybe they could have a little nap or sleep in the car, depending on where you're going. And at this point, no technology. Have them just look outside and stare if they're not going to take a nap. But just look at the trees, look at nature around them. Weather, of course. We have our summer rains. Now, I'm going to stop here and make mention of a little backpack. If you're going to go out on a regular basis, you might think or consider putting together a little pack. So when you could leave it at the child's house, and when you come for your pickup time, you could say they could be ready with their little backpack of some of these necessities. So in the backpack for weather, you could think about sunscreen, maybe a little rain jacket in the summer, maybe a little light jacket if it's cooler weather later on in the year. And of course, snacks. Kids love snacks. And you want to keep their energy up. So not a lot of sugar, but you want some healthy kind of snacks for them. Thinking about restrooms, of course, they have to go before you leave. And are there restaurants at the location you're going to? You notice down here on the right, lately with COVID, when my husband and I go out on trails, the restrooms are locked. They're not available. So on your way to wherever you're going, make sure you're aware of where there are gas stations or convenience store in case they have an emergency and have to stop on the way back home or maybe on the way there. It's more interesting if you've got a site with variety. So when you're looking at those guides or online, check to see what they have. There may be old houses there, or maybe it was a logging place and you might have some down logs that you could play on, or boardwalks. Water is a lot of fun for kids. Maybe there's a pond. These wetlands are really a lot of fun to look at because they're so different from maybe our other types of habitats. You want to minimize the distance to the sites, probably no more than a half hour. Otherwise, they'll get antsy and cranky by the time they get there, and that won't be very fun. Additional supplies you could put in, you can see up on the right-hand corner, might be some Kleenex, there's hand sanitizer, maybe there's the poncho for rain, and you could have some field guides in there, anything else that you might think of. And last, have a positive attitude. I mean, if they get a little tired, maybe you could redirect their energy and say, oh my gosh, look at that over there. Let's go find out what it is. And then hopefully they'll forget they're tired. Or how about, oh, that looks interesting around the next corner. Let's look over there. And if they're really tired, you can always empathize too. Yeah, I know you're tired. You've already walked a half hour. But let's go a little bit further, kind of acknowledge that they're tired, but just keep on going. Let's see. So, suggestions for exploring the outdoors. Finally, you're outside and you want to have fun, okay? Those are going to be the best memories. You don't want to have memories of you trudging in the rain and getting stuck in mud. You want to have fun. And fun would be what the child thinks is fun. Maybe you're interested in rocks and geology, and the kids aren't, they want to play in the sand. So whatever the child thinks is fun, that's what's fun. And if it's not being fun, if they don't look like they're having fun, you could ask them, gosh, it doesn't look like you're having fun. What do you think would make this more fun? Or do you have any suggestions what we can do next time so that you have more fun? And structure is whether to be unstructured or structured. how closely you're going to monitor them. And then we'll go over finally, some activities. So fun. Again, this little boy would rather play with frogs than look at rocks. Someone likes to climb a tree over here. And you don't want to call them hikes. It seems kind of a strange word to use, hike in Florida anyway, although we do have some up and down and around kind of features here. But make it fun by saying, we're going to go on a jungle experience, and we're going to look for wild animals. So you go down to the pond, and that's where you find the frog, maybe. Or you can look under leaves or under the bark or any other place that they might find some animals. You could have a scavenger hunt. And if they're younger, maybe have some pictures, and they have to go off and find what's on the picture, like a flower with a particular shape, or maybe a different shape, or a different shape of leaf, things like that, a piece of bark. Or you could use words and help them with the words if they're at that stage. They could be detectives, where you find clues of animals. Like sometimes in the woods, you might find some bark that's been rubbed on. That might be a bear. Or how about when you see wild pigs that have torn up and rooted an area? You could talk about that. Or you could go on a treasure hunt, where they have certain things that they find interesting. So again, focus on their interests and ask what they are interested in. Structure, it can be unstructured or structured. This looks more unstructured. You can stand back and let them enjoy being outdoors and picking up some rocks and throwing it in the river here. Or maybe finding a really comfortable place to lie down and just checking out what's in the grass there. So involve them also in part of the trip. For example, you could show them the trail map and have them choose which trail to go on, or if you come to a fork in the trail, which one do you want to go on? Also, you could have them watch for the color trail markers, or if they're old enough, maybe holding the guidebooks, the trail guidebooks, or the golden what do they call them? The golden books, for birds or ponds, things like that. They can be in charge of that. And they could be involved that way. Also, it might be unstructured in that you let them be the leader. And there might be a rule, depending on the age, that they're only allowed to go to a certain spot because they have to keep you in their vision. They can't go off the trail. But remember, or even if they stop, they don't want to run up ahead of you. Even if they want to stop, you stop with them and find out what they're interested in. Because remember, even if you spend a long time just slowly going somewhere, I always forget who gets credit for this saying, but it's not the destination, it's the journey. So what you're doing is making memories. And give them a variety too, as far as letting them run or climb, step into puddles, that kind of thing. Some activities, it's when they get involved in something, ask them a lot of questions. You don't need You don't need to tell them, this is, such and such a bug. Oh, look at that. That's a such and such a tree. And it gets these kind of nuts on them. Or this flower does this. They're the ones exploring and learning. And so ask them questions. Get them involved that way. Have them observe different ants. Maybe they didn't know that there are different kind of ants, and they act differently and they lurk differently. So you might look under, a lot of times we've seen holes. What could be living in there? Animal tracks. What kind of animal is that? Do you think it's running, or do you think it's just walking? If it's running, why do you think it's running? There's different kinds of bees out there. Mushrooms, gosh, different kind of mushrooms that are so beautiful and interesting. If they kind of whiz by, they're not one of those energetic kind of kids who can say, I just saw such and such over there. Let's go see if we can find it. And you can also ask questions that use their senses. Make sure they use all of their senses. Not just seeing, of course, but what do they hear? Have them describe what they hear. To them, what does it sound like? Have them touch things. What does it feel like? What does it remind you of? What does it sound like? Have them close their eyes and take a mental picture so they can recall it later. And remember their emotional senses, which is, how do they feel about something? When they're touching something, how does it feel? It feels soft. But how do you feel about it? I really like it. It reminds me of my blanket at home. It makes me feel comfortable. So remember the emotional senses also. This is something about observation, and it's kind of an odd picture that I put this in here, but it illustrates to me how much I still don't know and still learn and still am excited to learn about. I was recently at the Arizona Botanical Garden, and there was this huge shrub with all these tubular flowers. I was standing back from it and I go, oh, yeah, that's a nice plant. I've seen tubular flowers. I said, I think maybe I should go observe that more. So the closer I got, there were so many bees. They were just hovering around anywhere. They were just going in and out of the stems and all around. And I go, well, I wonder if these are long-tongued bees, because how are they going to get the nectar in this long tube? Well, as I watched them, the bee went to the entrance of the tubular flower and landed on the entrance there and wiggled, squirmed, wiggle, wiggle, squirm, and went deep into the throat of this flower and obviously drank the nectar. Of course, then I'm wondering, how is he going to get out? Well, I waited and waited and waited, and he wasn't coming out. I guess he was thirsty, really enjoying that nectar. But finally, I'm a terrible photographer. You can see it's all blurred. But if you look right here, I don't know if my cursor is circling. If not, if you can't see it, look at the first red flower, tubular flower, and the one to the left of it. Right where the opening is, towards the back, there's a little stripe of yellow. So that's how he got out. He backed, he squirmed, he wiggled. And then he came out and flew away to another flower. So there is so much to see out there if you just stop and look. Here's some more activities. Collecting. You could collect in a box things that interest you, or collect things that you maybe could take home and maybe have a setup where you could set these things up and learn more about them so that you can share them with your family and your friends. Maybe this little boy's collecting different things, and but you want to let them go. Remember that. And I like these little plastic containers here because it has a magnifying glass on the top, which makes it a little bit easier to observe the insect. It might be a little bit smaller than this. I don't know. So your child could maybe be a curator of a museum by showing off what he's collected. I do want to make a note here about the bird nest, that is illegal according to the Migratory Bird Act. You can't pick up feathers or bird nests or anything associated with birds. You may already know that. How about some more passive activities out there? If you have children who are really interested in drawing or photography or reading, you can just as well read and draw outside as you can inside. And this is kind of an opportunity also when you're out there to introduce professions, such as maybe, there are botanical illustrators or animal illustrators for books or other things. There's also maybe if someone is interested in writing, I know my niece is, she could keep a journal of her nature activities, maybe becoming a nature journalist, or maybe an author that has nature in the theme of the book, or maybe write a trail guide somewhere when they grow up. So all these things can be introduced at this time to let them know that there are things that they can do with nature. Below, they can become an explorer, a scientist, or a researcher. You can also, because we don't know everything, no one knows everything, we can learn along with the child. These golden guidebooks are really handy. They're small, packable. You could have a flower press so that you can maybe identify them when you get home because you don't have the resources where you're at. Of course, apps on the phone. This might be, for probably even older children to keep their attention. The iNaturalist a lot of people use. Here's a little boy taking a picture. And remember, you can also take a selfie at the end of your trail and maybe keep track there and have them share with their parents or grandparents or friends where they've been. So, in conclusion, just remember that everyone approaches the world differently, and they have different different, they may have different interests, learning styles, and depending on the ages, that's important too. It can be unstructured and structured. And express yourself even if you're not with them on a nature trail or outdoors. For example, if you're in the car and you're driving them home, just say, oh, look at that beautiful clouds. Oh, I just love it. It's so beautiful. Just make note of what you appreciate about nature too. That's part of sharing. And remember that part of all this also is to develop observation skills, how to use their senses, including emotional senses, for them to explore and discover, and be physical, do some physical activity too. But the number one objective, I think, is making memories, happy memories that last a lifetime. And you are part of that. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Neta. And I actually happen to have that book that you were talking about, the trail book. And I can't
Great.
say I recommend it. It's got trail maps and, suggests what time of day is the best time to go. And I even learned things about um, other trails that I never even knew were in the area because of this book. So
Yeah,
yeah, I do
great.
recommend that. Um,
Oh,
and I especially like your idea about starting like very close, like start in your yard, expand to your neighborhood, things like that. Somebody introduced me to the concept of the 30 centimeter hike, where you just kind of sit down in your yard
ah,
and you watch what's around you for a half hour, and you see, if an insect comes by or a bird flies in, or you just have to be
yeah.
still for a minute, and then you can start there, and then you go to the whole yard, and then you can keep going out. Um, I am participating on some online contests where on Facebook where you go and you take a picture, and it's kind of like a scavenger hunt. So as an adult, I'm sort of doing the same thing that you're talking about. But I was very surprised because one of the local parks, the Withlacoochee State Trail, which is managed by the State Park Association, they're doing one of those contests, and they want you to take a picture on the trail. I didn't even know that there was a swamp next door to the trail until
Oh,
I got there. And I was thinking that's probably also a good introduction because, biking is easier than hiking, or if you got really little kids, you can like tote them behind you in a wagon and they're just along for the ride. You pull over and, kind of see
but
what's
they're
going
out there and they're seen.
right.
They're exposed. Right.
So we did have a question. Sue, she asked, do you have any suggestions for how to sync two very different styles of kids? Because one's introverted and the other has no attention span. And she says when they're with their parents, they separate them. But when she's babysitting, they both want her attention at the same time.
Oh, I exactly. I have had that problem myself. Two different with my niece and nephew, and it is hard. And so I just have to, for me, and I don't know if this will work for you, but I have to stop them. Just stop them and say, okay, I'm going to listen to your sister now. Okay. And I really want to hear what you have to say, but I need to listen to your sister, that kind of thing. And also, if you're on the trail, um, if the introverted one doesn't mind, maybe the extroverted one could be the leader as long as he includes the other child. So somehow, if you could mesh their two personalities, or if you leave one in the field of vision, you have one be more active, climbing, whereas you sit with someone and you let the child read, that kind of thing. It's hard, I know.
I suppose if you had two kids that were competitive and you had a little sibling rivalry, maybe you could do a competition like, how many flowers can you find that are different, or how many of this, or how many of that.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that too.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I was kind of wondering about is that starting when they're young is the best time, but not everybody has young kids. And as you were talking, some of the stuff like if you have somebody that's already interested in art or photography or writing, you could introduce, a budding author to like the Bartrams and how
Mm-hmm.
they wrote about nature, and iNaturalist definitely. But do you have any ideas for older kids that are, entry level, just kind of get them off their devices, maybe like to go tubing or kayaking, and they'll put
Oh,
those away because it's wet.
right. Yeah, it's true. I didn't really cover like older children so much. I was thinking more of like even 10,
Right.
10 or 11. But when they become teenagers now, yeah, they have to, again, you would have different kind of activities that would be more physical, like if you can get them paddleboarding, kayaking, any way to get them out that way would be
We're
a
lucky
good.
locally we have a charter school that kids can take a semester at. It's the Science Academy. So for those already kind of interested in that, they can go out, and it's located on the water, and they can participate in very hands-on environmental type activities. And then I also happen to know that like the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs has an annual kind of, it's like a weekend long trip that kids that are teenagers, older teenagers, high schoolers that are interested in nature can go participate in kind of a symposium that are it's nature based. But again, that's all kids that are already interested in it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And I think that if you've introduced them at a younger age and they don't follow through when they're 11, 12, 13, 15, 20, it doesn't mean that it won't be there and it won't come back later. I think that those memories and passion when they're done raising their family and, they don't have to work anymore, they have more time. That's a lot of times when the older people go back to. It's not necessarily that they've followed through from young age, always wanting to be outdoors. It depends on the people.
Yeah. And I was even just thinking that being a teenager nowadays is kind of stressful. So possibly like outdoor meditation or yoga or activities like that could be a bridge to bring the teenagers into the outdoors too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is that? The new thing, bathing in the forest or something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you just go out there and you zen.
Yeah, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, drag them along to that.
Well, I did. Our Gail Taylor said, "Thank you, Neta. It was very informative." And Sue wrote back in that you sparked her imagination, so she's gonna tackle those nieces and nephews.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yes. Well, I hope a little bit of here and there kind of infiltrated, your imagination.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've covered pretty much everything that somebody needs to get their kids into nature. All right, so
you all know the benefits, so
yeah.
I applaud you. I applaud you for wanting to take the kids out. I do.
Well, thank you for coming to speak to the World Wide Web and us today, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Athena. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
So, to everybody out there, I hope you get your kids out into nature and enjoy some outdoor time during spring break. We look forward to having any of you join us during our meeting that's coming up on Tuesday. And until then, see you later.